part of it. So, well, we're going to get started, but thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let Dana and Kim have the show, but for those of you that have not met me, I'm Jonna Weber. This is being recorded, and we want to make sure that everyone understands that this is being put on by the Boise Real Estate Investor Network. And if anyone on here or is watching this is not part of our community, we're a Facebook community. Primarily, you can join the Boise Real Estate Investor Network, and we will actually be having our first live event in Boise on April 29th. We just announced that today. So I'm very excited about that. And if you're local, we'd love to have you there. I'll put the link in the chat. But I also run Jonna Weber Real Estate, and we are a top producing team here in Boise, Idaho. And Kim has been partnered with me at Jonna Weber Real Estate for over 3 years now. She works with a lot of wonderful buy and hold investors in our area, both on the buy and sell side. And so she is going to share a little bit about what's going on in our Boise market. We get that question every day. And then she's going to introduce our special guest, Dana, today, who's coming in to us from out of area. So we're super excited to hear about utilizing a hybrid model of, well, I'm gonna let you guys explain. I'm probably gonna butcher it, but she's got a great company that has a unique model that I think is gonna give us a great tips and tricks for how to run our buy and hold businesses. So without further ado, here you go, Kim.
Okay, let me just share my screen real quick. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so I'm going to do a quick market update. There are lots of questions surrounding the market right now. Some of the questions are, is the market stabilizing? Are we in a housing market crash? Is the inventory high, low? We're seeing big price drops, and we're also seeing multiple offers again. So I would say all of those things are true, and we'll go over that except for the housing market crash thing, but we can talk about predictions of that later. So median sales prices, if you look here, and we're talking about Ada County, just existing resale right now, the prices have dropped 10.9% year over year, and this is the February report. March hasn't quite come out yet, to $472,000 in Ada County. So at that 500,000-ish price point, that's about $50,000 from last year. But given the inflated market over the last few years, this is to be expected. The market is stabilizing after 2 years of record low interest rates. The higher interest rates are bringing down the prices and getting prices back to where they need to be. So we have many more homes selling around that median price point than we did over the last few years. So when interest rates were at record lows, many more buyers could afford a home, say in that $700,000 to $1 million plus price point. And now people are really trying to stay under that $600,000, $550,000 amount, and even more so to stay under that median price point if possible, which is, it can be quite difficult at times. So, and that brings me to my next point. So even though we are seeing longer days on market, which we're at 78 days on market when you average existing and new construction. But when you get below that $400,000, $425,000 price point, that's where we're really seeing the multiple offers, especially if it's a decent house that's really well maintained, even if it's older, if it's really clean, it's staged, it's showing well, it's got a nice yard. People are all over it. So that's really where we're seeing multiple offers, but it wasn't like it was a couple years ago where everything was getting multiple offers. So, and then on to new construction. So let me switch this here. So this little snapshot will show you where we are with the median price, days on market with new construction only. So many of our builders, the production builders and the boutique builders, have slowed way down on building the spec homes. So for example, let's take CBH as an example. They finally saw an uptick in sales the last couple of weeks in January, and they were like, it's finally happening because they had lowered prices so much. We're doing incentives, and really they stopped negotiating. They were like, this is it. They were still doing some incentives, but And now when you drive into their neighborhoods, you'll notice, not all of them, but most of them, that building has almost stopped for the most part. So builders haven't applied for even half of the building permits as of this time last year. I've heard that the building permit applications are down about 90%. So, and then let's click over here to the, if you look down here, we'll look at inventory for a little bit. So you can see in 2007, super high inventory, almost 4,000 homes. January 2021, 103 homes on the market, and currently, and this again was in February, 516. So inventory has obviously gone up, but just from working in the market with buyers on a daily basis, your choices dwindle down really quickly as you try to find, say, a non-CBH home under 500,000, 4 bedrooms, a decent yard, at least 1,800 square feet. I bet that would bring up maybe 7 or 8 CBH options. And then if you say you decide you don't want a CBH home, I think your options would be like 0 to 1. So inventory is up, but just being boots on the ground, it doesn't feel really high. I think a more balanced market would be, I would say like around 1,000 to 1,200. That's what I would think. So, but the spring market is approaching in the next couple of weeks, and I know we are all looking forward to the new sellers and buyers that that's going to bring. So this is all bigger picture data. The real story is the individual buyer and seller, their personal situation and affordability. And I know we at John & Weber Real Estate would love to help you through that journey, whatever it is. So please reach out and we'd love to discuss your goals. So that is it for the market report. Are there any questions? Okay, so let's just go on to our speaker for the night. Dana Denford, CEO and co-founder of Hemlane, is here to discuss how buy and hold investors can increase cash flow by utilizing technology and local professionals. And Hemlane is a property management platform. Dana was named one of the top 20 women leaders, got a lot of women on here tonight, and influencers in real estate tech, and received her MBA from Harvard Business School. And we are honored that you're here tonight, Dana, and are looking forward to your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I love that John and Kim, you guys have so much on the ground experience of what's physically going on today, because those numbers, are from February. We haven't even closed March. And so you really know what is going on and what has happened in the past 30 days, which obviously the reports are slightly behind that. So it's good to see your guys' update and forecast for the future. I also love the Warren Buffett quote of be greedy when others, fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. And I think the same thing in real estate, that, the time when others are pulling back, you might get some fantastic deals. So I'm excited to talk about how technology can help you with that as well today, especially on the property management side. Just really quickly in the chat, or I'm going to share my screen, but in the chat, or if you guys want to just say it out loud, who here owns rental properties today, and who's kind of new and just looking to start out? And anyone with 0 rental properties?
I have 3 single family that I plan to buy and hold.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So it sounds like everyone has some experience here, which is fantastic. Too many. That's great. And so, a lot of basically the fundamentals, and there's 2 different parts that are a component of buy and hold, right? The first is purchasing the property and trying to, based on your buy box, buy the right property at the right time. So make sure it meets your criteria. And then the second is a management. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And just giving you guys some resources and how we think of property management and the future of the industry of how you can maximize your cash flow. and still obviously connect with local professionals, which is the hybrid, which we'll talk about today. Feel free to put chats in there, and Kim will just interrupt me because I can't actually see the box. So she'll just interrupt me if there are any questions along the way. But I first want to start by testing your PM knowledge. Because all of you have rental properties, I hope you get 100% on this. So let's go ahead and take it away. My first question, and in the chat, you can just put A, B, C, or D. What cannot be asked when you're doing a rental reference check? So if you're calling a prior landlord, which of these questions should you not ask them? A, B, C, or D? First is just how much were they paying in their rent? The second was, did they get along with their neighbors? The third one is, which is C, can you confirm the dates of the residents? And D is, was there any damage beyond normal wear and tear? And Kim can let me know what is being put in there.
We've got some B's. We got an A.
All right. So the
Another
answer
B.
that one is B. Very good. So everything has to be objective, right? And that's actually where I think leveraging technology can be incredibly beneficial, of having systematic rules and ways of doing things. Asking the rental rate, you can, but as many of you know from like asking employment history, you can't ask, what's their income right now to their employer. All of that has to go through third-party income verification tools. So just certain things on the property management side, increased liability is obviously one of them. And so as much as you can prevent that through education and through using professionals, both local as well as nationwide, to help mitigate that risk is super helpful. This second one is true or false. You can deny a pit bull even if it's an emotional support animal. So if someone comes to you and has an emotional support animal, but it's a pit bull, can you deny them of having that in the house?
I think we're all
We've
afraid to
got
get it
a-
wrong.
Yeah, we've got a false. I would think it depends on your contract, like just specifically. Because
Yes.
pit bulls aren't just outlawed outright, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this was a trick question to make you really think. So from that perspective, I'll give you the caveat that it does depend on your landlord insurance. So if your insurance says that financially they will not insure you if there's a pit bull in the property, if you say, I don't accept pets, and someone comes with an emotional support animal, of course you still have to say yes and accept them. But if it's going to be a financial hardship, such as your insurance not accepting the liability associated with having a pit bull, you can legally say no. And so there's tons of these caveats that go into property management, and knowing this stuff and having professionals is super important, because you do need to look into the details. So yeah, the contract from the insurance side is the one that's important. In Idaho, what are the number of days to return the security deposit? Kim, how are we?
I said B. Jonna said 21.
21. Jonna got it right.
I say Jonna probably knows.
21 days, yeah. So this is the end of my quiz. I won't ask you guys 100 questions, but this is kind of the fun stuff that goes into property management, of really understanding and mitigating risk and making sure you're super professional. You'll have a great experience with your tenants if you do. So what are we going to discuss today? First is decisions with real estate investing. So what kind of decisions you make, we'll go over 2 of those today. Then we'll talk about hybrid property management. I'm going to just talk about how you could hack this solution together that we have, and kind of alternative ways to think about your property management. And we'll talk about why that's so important. And then also about kind of repeat and building your portfolio and thinking about that. I think as a real estate investor, getting out of the operations is super important, so you can focus on the investment and finding your next property and coming up with different strategies for it, whether it's tax strategies or whether it may be just purchasing at the right time or the right place and having a pulse on the market. So that will be what we conclude with. and then I'll open it up for questions. So what are the decisions with purchasing real estate? How many, you guys can also put it into the chat and can tell me, are local to like Boise and Idaho, or how many of you are out of state investors?
No answers yet.
I'm local.
I'm local.
So we've got 2 local. And what I want those who are listening to this to think about is that there's no right answer, right? It really depends on what your objectives are. And I don't think, I'm in San Francisco, so I don't think it's necessarily bad to go and look out of state. It's never been easier than it is today to be able to do that. Like, we're on a Zoom call. You can get on a Zoom call and talk to Kim or Jonah anytime, right, to learn more about the Boise market. I think what's more important is to have a professional, and we'll talk about this in more detail, who is there on the ground, who knows the market, who you can trust.
And Dana, Lisa is local, but looking out of state, and Michelle is in Louisville.
Okay.
I can't say it right. Louisville.
Louisville. I know, it's crazy. I'm sorry, Boise, can't do it.
Yeah. So, and you can actually, hopefully with hybrid management, get your numbers to work in Boise. We'll talk about that too. But then the other decision after you purchase the property, right, is self-manager, property manager. What's really interesting about this one is folks come to us all the time and say, should I use Hemlane? Should I use your guys' property management? I say, well, it depends. It depends on what your goals are. Are you looking to maximize cash flow? You're looking to be completely hands-off? What are you looking for with your property? And what's really interesting is that over 70% of owners, it's 72% of owners self-manage their rental properties. And so when you look at the industry today, most folks across the nation are self-managing their properties. So if you are one of those doing that, you're not an outlier by any means. You're part of the masses that are self-managing. And so the real question as a real estate investor is, how do you spend more time focusing on strategy and less time on the operations? And so basically our idea and the concept, and what I want you to take away from this is that you guys can set up your own processes to do this, especially if you're self-managing, it's almost easier. But how do you basically get freedom from the day-to-day property management with affordable and transparent property management? Because we know that the majority of rental owners do self-manage their properties. And so how do we take that knowledge and help provide the connections and the right folks to make that successful, so you don't return the security deposit too late, or you don't have some fair housing violation. And so that's really what I'm here to educate you on. And if you have any questions also in the Facebook group after this, you can chat me as well. One thing I do have to say is I'm not a lawyer, so I can't provide legal advice. I can refer you to a lawyer for that. So what is hybrid property management? Everyone knows hybrid cars, right? You can put gas in it, but you can also charge it, right? It's the same concept here of taking 2 great things and putting them together. And so how I think about it is, one is you as the real estate investor, and then one is professionals, local professionals, professional coordinators, whomever it may be, and using technology in the middle to help bring people closer together and to work and collaborate. Historically, you couldn't do this, right? You had technology that was just built for you. So technology just for you to collect rent, or just for you to go and put in tasks. Now, when you look at how technology is built, it's built with other folks in mind, and building your team is super important. And so whether you're investing in Boise and you live in Boise, or whether you're an out-of-state investor and looking to invest in Boise, it's highly recommended that you kind of think of technology and leverage it to come up with a really strong hybrid model. So what's my first tip is have a very strong local team. And that obviously starts with your realtor to help you purchase a property. But then after that, there's a lot of things that go into the management side. And having a strong local team is going to make or break those cash flow numbers. So I gave an example from another city. We're nationwide, but having leasing and management professionals. So Kate here does leasing and management, and basically having someone who can help with things such as preparing the lease, so licensed support, whether it's move in, move out inspections. So basically going through and finding and working with professionals who have that. Of course, Kim and Jonna have a whole Rolodex of folks, not only on from that perspective, but also from the contractor perspective. And so for us, what's really important is just making sure you have the right boots on the ground when you physically need someone out at the property. And so they obviously should be licensed for their trade. Does anyone know the difference between a handyman and a general contractor?
Contractor is licensed and has insurance, right?
That's correct. And then a handyman could have insurance. You would hope they have insurance, but they don't have to be licensed. By definition, a handyman does not have to be licensed. And so I'm really making sure that you have the right service professionals in place. Bonded is obviously nice. Not every contractor is bonded. I can tell you that much. But really making sure you have a really good network of folks who can go out there for repairs, for turnovers, et cetera. We at Hemline like to build that for our investors as well. And so having that Rolodex of service professionals we've worked with time and time again to provide to you, so you can make sure there's someone trusted, right, going into your property who not only fits this criteria, but has worked with us multiple times on the property management side. The second tip is I'm going to talk a little bit about hardware at the end of this, but using hardware and software both to communicate with those local professionals you're using, whether it is someone on the management side to do some licensed activity there, or someone doing licensed activities for repairs and maintenance, but using those and helping you provide 70% time savings. And so first of all, advertising is super important. One of the things I see that is there's two things that are very emotional for a real estate investor. One is having a bad tenant, right? A bad tenant will ruin your cash flow. The second is vacancy and having to find a qualified tenant. And so definitely using solutions to help advertise everywhere. You don't want to just go to Zillow. Zillow is great. It has some of the tenants, but don't forget there's realtor.com, Zumper, HotPads, PadMapper, you name it, all of them on there. And so just really making sure that you broaden and extend where you're advertising your property. And then obviously doing the full comprehensive background and credit checks, including income verification, to make sure that folks are qualified for your property. I'm not going to go too much into detail because I do know most folks on this call have rental properties, but if you want to talk about income to rent ratios or anything like that, I love talking about that stuff. This is one of the cooler things that we've seen working really well is chatbots. Now, chatbots don't solve everything. If a tenant wants to have a conversation with you, you need to get on the phone call with them. But initially, when a tenant puts in a repair request, we've started doing troubleshooting through chatbots where we ask the tenants what's going on. Is it a garbage disposal? Is it a washing machine? Is it a dryer? Is it your dishwasher? And then going through and understanding, one, what's wrong, troubleshooting, saying, have you tried these things like flipping the breaker box, changing the light bulb, whatever it may be. And what's interesting is after we had introduced chatbots, we found that 7% of had 7% additional of requests closed that never needed us to send out a handyman or an electrician or a plumber. And so when you think about kind of new age technology and how you can leverage and use it, it can actually help increase your bottom line, your cash flow, because you're not going to be sending out someone to do work where the tenant could, without any liability, fix it themselves. And so we're finding a lot of success by putting this into place. One of the really cool things I think with data is what we have found is we can actually go through and see how many plumbing requests, how many electrical requests, how many handyman requests we have, and what are the most frequent ones that are asked. And then we work through those chatbots to make sure we see every single tenant's flow through it. And how can we go through and predict exactly what is wrong, and then how they could fix it on their own before sending out a service professional. This is an example of one, but we'll have photos in there. We'll help de-escalate requests such as turning off main valves, things like that, to help make sure that we minimize any sort of risk with the asset. And then on the financial side, collecting rent, other fees like automated late fees, paying vendors, sharing all of this with your accountant. If you're not automating all of this today, you definitely should. It will save you significantly a lot of time. So that's another thing that like you should kind of have as your checkbox of what you're doing. Because if you're using something like Venmo or PayPal for rent collection, some of the risks associated with that are obviously disputes. It's easier to dispute. The second one is partial payments, so them not paying the full amount to you. And then the third one associated with it is you have to go in every single time and check that the rent was paid, versus having an automated system that says, yep, everything's clear for this month for you. This is the one I want to have a conversation about, because I was actually really against it. And my perception versus reality has changed quite a bit after doing a beta with it. How many folks here use self-guided tours and lockboxes for their rental showings?
I've got one that says they don't.
So one of the risks that I've seen, nope. So one of the risks that I saw, well, there were multiple risks I should talk about with lockboxes. And the first one was obviously liability of having someone in your property who you don't know who they are. And if they know it's a self-guided tour, could they steal something? Could they, break something? Even though if it's not a furnished rental, could they still take something like the washing machine or something like that? And so it was really interesting to go through that process, because one thing that we realized in the discovery process is that there's biometric information now, like this photo, where you can just hold up your ID to your face, and immediately we can scan it to confirm, one, the tenant is who they say they are. Two, do a quick check, make sure that they're verified for showing. There's nothing that in their background that would like cause some sort of concern for that. And then go through and they'll have it verified in the system and they're able to book a showing. And then that puts, and it's basically encrypted in our system, but it does have their driver's license and all their information on file. And so we found that to be the first way to mitigate risk. The second risk, and then it's single-use lockbox codes, so the codes change for every single showing. The second thing that we saw as a risk with self-guided tours was the concept that essentially they would break into the property, right, and steal something, and how do you identify it back to them? What we actually found was when you actually do self-guided tours, they happen so quickly that you'll have 1 to 2 showings every single day, that you actually can reduce the risk of some sort of break-in, because typically when we see a squatter situation or something like that, it's actually not the person who's touring the property, it's someone else who saw a vacant property online or for rent sign in the yard, and then they break in through a window. And so by doing showings back to back, or people can get in the day of, what we found with that is that it really helps to, if there is any sort of break-in that was outside of the self-guided tours, we have found that we find out about it faster, because we try to, the second a tenant inquires, we try to get them into the property that day or the following day. And so we can turn the property faster. We work with leasing agents across the nation, so those who focus and specialize on finding and placing tenants, and they've seen a lot of success with this as well. in working with us, because what they have found is that a self-guided tour will be able to help reduce that vacancy time, get people in faster. And then there's not these no-shows or something like that. And then it increases the time they can spend on inspections or something else. And so once we launched the self-guided tours, we basically found that we reduced vacancy by 10 days. And so we were able to get tenants into properties faster. And then that was able to help increase your cash flow, get folks in faster. So that is what we found to be super helpful on the hardware side. I always say, you know, all of this technology of smart home technology first goes to your primary residence and then goes to your rental property. And I think that we're nearly there. I think when we have a conversation in 3 to 4 years, it will be something where, you know, most rental properties, if not all, like the mass majority of them, maybe not luxury or furnished, but most of them will be having these self-guided tours as a way for tenants to view the property in a much faster way. Does anyone have any questions on that? All right. We also use virtual coordinators for everything else. So anything that's not a licensed activity or that is if it is administrative, then we'll be using virtual coordinators who are specialized in their trade. And so for inquiries and applicants for setting up these showings and doing tasks like that, we have folks that are working around the clock to help with that in order to get folks in faster. And so again, this is using the hybrid model of using someone who's experienced in what they're doing, coupling it with you to avoid and reduce having you take administrative tasks on. And then the next thing is 24/7 repair coordination. And so having coordinators who know repairs, whether they've been handymen or been repair coordinators in the past or been in some sort of trade, being able to help with the tenants and getting things scheduled, talking to the service professionals, making sure that you're not getting screwed over on the price, making sure that the work was actually done properly is what these coordinators do. And so one of our big concepts, when you think about it, knowing that over 72% of rental owners self-manage, is kind of rethinking about your process of how you do it and selecting what you need, whether it is local support to help with the leasing, whether it's repair coordinators, or it's just tools and software to automate yourself out. You can start kind of thinking about these concepts to start thinking about your own rental properties and what you can do. Everything starts at $30 a month. So you can kind of see the concept of how that can really help you with your cash flow as well. Where from a property management perspective, if you're self-managing and you're worried about increasing that property management costs, there are solutions out there that you can use. And then I'll kind of leave you with one example. This is from one of the investors who uses us, a repeat and build your portfolio. So David is a San Diego real estate investor. He doesn't want all of his eggs in one basket, right? So if he were to invest in stocks in his backyard, he would be investing in the San Diego Biotech and Pharma Index. Over that same period of time, if you look at the S&P 500, that's how much more money you would make. That's the difference. And so when you think about diversification investing, it's the same thing. Use a trusted realtor and then hybrid management, and you can live here and then invest anywhere and get that local boots on the ground while still having a completely transparent and trusted solution for you. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. What questions do we have?
I know Lisa had one on the chat before. I think she had to go, but she was wondering if the Hemlane model is mainly for people with multiple properties to manage.
Yeah,
instead of just one.
Great question. We have our average investor has 8 properties, but our median is 6. And so we have investors all across the board, investors with just 1 property, investors with 10 properties, and investors with, 20, 50 properties. What we typically find is once you have over, it's usually over 50, although we have investors with over 100 properties. Once you have over 50 properties, you start bringing a lot of W-2s, so you start bringing people in-house for your operations. But until then, something like a Hemline is great because you don't have that operations in-house, like you don't have a plumber or a handyman, and so you definitely need to leverage these networks.
Awesome. Yes, I will relay that to her.
Great.
So, hi, it's Michelle. This is so timely because I've just been looking at a couple of systems and being investing out of state. My thought was to do a hybrid model, but I didn't know there was a system that could help me with that, which was kind of interesting. But I'm curious, what I'm curious about, and I'm just definitely going to dig into your demo and your website. But I'm curious about like where does like Rent Ready and Avail like fall off, and your solution kind of take it to that next, really to that next level?
Yeah, great question. So I think it depends on what you want. If you want just a software, like something to collect rent and do background and credit checks and things like that, all of us offer those solutions. Where Hemline differentiates itself and what makes us different is we're the only platform out there that if you say, hey, I need someone to physically pick up the phone, my tenant called at 2 a.m. and a pipe burst, we're the ones who have a 24/7 number and a staff to do that. If you say, hey, I need someone to physically call, here's the service professionals I use, or I don't have a network of them, I need someone to help with that, then we would be the ones there. And then it would be the same thing on the leasing side. If you need someone physically there to show the property, we work with property managers across the nation who can help with that, as well as if you're looking on the leasing side for the self-guided tours, which I mentioned is kind of the most exciting thing that we've been talking to property managers about. There's those options as well. And that provides like a much more affordable turnover package for you. And so when it comes down to it, it's the hybrid is the people, right? And connecting you with people. And I think that's the biggest differentiator with us.
That's kind of what I'm seeing, which I think is really awesome. There's so many questions.
Go for it, Michelle. Good. Take it away. I'm sure others are thinking it. And then there's those in the group that will. So yeah.
Yeah, like where are the people who are answering the phone? Are they local? Are they, except they're just answering the phone, they don't need to be local, but there's something about the local piece.
Yeah, great question. So of course, all the service professionals are local. What we have is we have a center, like a one operation. It's actually in Calgary. And that is just a complete office focused on that of people who are specialized in this, who understand repair coordination and can manage and answer all of those questions. Like, in other words, they know how to troubleshoot anything in the house. I actually call them for my personal residence as well, anytime I have something that's broken. But they're specialized in different regions. So like, let's just say, Michelle, you have 3 properties in Boise. What essentially would happen is you would have the same repair coordinator assigned to you. And they're basically, they can't work 7 days of the week, 24 hours, but they would be the default person assigned to you. And if they're out of office, then you would have someone different assigned while they're out of office for the 2 days that they don't work or when they're sleeping. But essentially it would be, we try to get you the same person. So for example, if in Boise we call a service professional, they're usually talking to the same person on our team, and we've built up some sort of reputation with them. What's really interesting with the local repair professionals, such as the general contractor or the plumber or the electrician, what's really interesting, and I'm actually happy to share this with you as well, I can put it in the Facebook group, is the types of questions you ask them and how you conduct business kind of makes or breaks whether or not they want to work with you. So upfront, before we've even worked with a service professional, now we have our database built, but we figure out what's their service call rate. Do they upcharge on materials? Does the service call rate go towards the jobs? For X, Y, and Z job, how much do they charge versus, ABC job, like whatever it is? We're comparing all of that stuff. And then they know by us getting all that information up front, they also know when we send them out, we've already gotten as much information as they need, such as the appliance make and model. How many years old is it? Should we just consider replacing it rather than repairing it? And doing all of that up front. And so a lot of that, Michelle, is what we try to do to make it where we have a really strong relationship with the service professionals. And then a lot of it is just, you never, I've always said, like, you can't really trust someone unless you've worked with them. And so from my perspective, like, unless we've worked with a service professional time and time again, you don't really know how good they are. Like, there's people who are great salespeople, but it comes to actually doing the work and they're not that great. And so we don't only take our reviews into account, but your reviews and the tenants' reviews on the service professionals to figure out, are we going to send them out time and time again? And it becomes pretty apparent after, 5 visits, whether or not this person is a lifer with us and whether we'll constantly be using them. So that's a great question.
Well, my camera's over here, so I'm going to come over here. So just stop me if I'm like going too deep, and we should just.
No, this is great. I'm sure in the
Okay.
Facebook group, people will want to hear it as well.
Okay, so I'm just curious about one aspect. I'm quite familiar with in general, the business model. But one of the things I'm also interested in understanding, and not down to the nitty-gritty detail, is, when you bring on a service provider, are they discounting to work with you, or are you adding kind of like, you had 20% for a general contractor, or is all of that within the 30, 50, 60 bucks a month per unit?
Yeah, great question. So we don't upcharge at all. So whatever the vendor's fee is, like whatever their fee is that they charge is what you would pay. So our subscription fee pays for our service of unlimited, anytime your tenants call, will help with the repair. And then we won't upcharge. So whatever the invoice is what they pay. We actually never ask for discounts. And this is with anyone we work with based on their prices. And here is why. We have found that if you go to all of the professionals and figure out what their costs are, their charges are, there's, you're going to be able to balance quality versus price. And a lot of times once you start getting in a price war and someone wants to discount, they're actually not that good. Like, they can't get business. And then you get shoddy work. It just hurts you in the end. So we never actually do that. We will negotiate if we just, like, if they're out at the property and they're like, hey, a garbage disposal is $350. It's like, probably won't work with you again. That seems super expensive. Like, if you break down parts and labor. But here's where it really helps. When we've worked with professionals time and time again, they lock us into the prices that we've always used because they've also built up trust with us. Like, you can't really ask for discounts right off the bat. And then more importantly, if something goes wrong, because there's always a case where like a service professional goes out, thinks they fixed it and got the root cause, and then it didn't work, they'll do those recalls and go right back out to the property and not charge anything. And so I think that is also super important. It's sort of like working with a realtor. Like, if you go to them and ask for like discounts and stuff like that, it's going to be the struggling ones that are going to say yes, and you might not get the price you want, et cetera. And so even when we're working with management and leasing agents, it's the same thing. When people say, hey, can you nickel and dime them on price? It's like, no, we actually don't do that. But what we do ensure is that quality, and we'll ask for feedback about how they're doing. We'll be transparent to you about what their price is and exactly what you're going to pay for it. And we found that to be a lot better way to work with the local partners that we work with.
Oh, good answer.
Okay, sorry, that was a long answer.
No, it's good. I mean, my concern was really, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
you don't want to overpay, but you know, if you were taking, if you were upcharging, you were taking a piece of their income, are we at the bottom of the, the barrel, so to speak?
Yeah, it misaligns in incentives because if we take a if our repair coordinators are basically like compensated and like their performance is based on how much money they make us based on, percentage, then their incentives are misaligned because Michelle, they're going to get you a service professional who's more expensive, right?
Right.
But how we actually judge them is based on their reviews of how was their service. Because after every single repair request is closed, we asked, how did the service professional do? And how did your repair coordinator? And they will have their name on there. How did they do? And so by judging them based on that, then they can ensure there's quality. Because a lot of times there's like for us, there's 3 different people that you're trying to make happy. A tenant wants the person out there as of today, because everything's an emergency to them.
Yep.
The owner wants like a reasonable price and good quality work. And then the service professional wants to know, obviously, that when they get out there, that they have the right tools, they can get the job done in an efficient manner, they'll get paid right away. And we're not going to hassle them for a ton of things. Like we do ask for them to upload photos and stuff, but we tell them up front and we outline everything for them. So there's always that balance between what all 3 people want and how to make everyone happy in that sense. And so you're balancing that. And then with service professionals, it's the same thing. We've had service professionals who are great. And then over time, they kind of decay, like they don't do as well. And a lot of times that's with folks who are individuals, or large companies. Those are like the 2 biggest risks. If they're just a solo team and an individual, you can find that they suddenly become an alcoholic or something, like you just had no idea. And then you have to phase them out. They used to be amazing, but they no longer are. Then if you work with the large nationwide providers, a lot of times it's like you have no idea who they're sending out. And then there's kind of some standards there. So what we found is like, at least from service professionals of like plumbers, electricians, you kind of want to work with the like small mom and pop. They've 25 years in business in this town. It's still the like guy running it who takes the calls and ensures that quality. But he has a big enough team that he's not a 1-person show if, a pipe burst and we need to get him out there.
His kid is apprenticing and is about to take over the business.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always that balance with them. And that's where like the customer feedback, I think, is super important. And like, as you build your own team, right, trust is built over time. Your first time sending someone out is sort of like your first time with the tenant moving into the property. You get a bit nervous of like, are they going to pay rent? Are they going to like be a nuisance? And like what you try to do is mitigate as much of that risk up front.
Yeah.
It's just like you do with tenants, where you do like the background and credit checks and this and that.
Right.
Try to mitigate as much of that risk as possible.
Yeah. Okay, I have one last question, and then
Yeah.
I'm sure other people have questions. And I'm sure I can look at this. I'm just curious where, are you guys, how long have you been in business? Are you fully funded? Where are you in your startup growth? Are you even startup at this point?
Yeah, we like to think of ourselves as a company. Although I know people say they're a startup. I used to work at Apple and we used to say we were the world's largest startup. And it was like, you're not really a startup. And that was over.
Well, I came from Intel and Microsoft.
Okay.
So I'm just curious, like I get that. And it's like, well, I didn't want to offend you by calling you a startup, but
yeah, no, totally. It doesn't offend us at all. So we started in 2014. So we've been around for a while. And then we have 20,000 rentals that we're managing. So like we've been in business long enough. We always do though, with things do beta launches. So for example, like our new lockbox stuff, where I kind of was like, I don't know if this is going to work and ensure quality. We took a lot of our customers who had been on there for a long time and told them to beta test it for us, and that they would give us feedback on it to see how well it performed. And that was launched back last July to kind of see how that would work for tenants. For any agents we were working with, anything like that. And so we've seen quite a bit of success with that as well.
okay. So you're not in a funding
No, so we have funding. Well, we do have investors behind us, but we have capital for years now. Yeah.
You're a teenager. Okay, cool. I like that. That's good.
There, yeah, a teenager. Still in the innovative stage, but
Good.
not in the early stage. Yeah, but
Perfect.
yeah, at the beginning, you're right. A lot of these questions of like centralizing versus decentralizing repair coordinators in the early days, and you probably know this, like building businesses, just like building your real estate empire. The question's not as easy to answer until you do it and you try both models and you test what is the best for your customer. And then once you figure out what works and you're like, okay, this is the best model. And then you go on and you check the reviews to see what works and what doesn't.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dana, did you address already what the minimum amount, like I've got multiple rentals, and do people kind of test it out maybe with one or two if they've got a bigger portfolio, or is it all or nothing?
Yeah, I always tell them we have a free trial. So go on there and do our free trial and even try it out with one or two rental units if you want to. Yeah, I would always say like just try the services, make sure they work for you. You're right, larger portfolios, we will tell them to do that if saying like, hey, you have 50 rentals and you're going to put them all on Hemlane. Start with your first building of like 4 units, toss those on, then we can build up trust that way. And then you can move everything over in a phase solution. So there's no right answer with it. The one thing that we do ask, this might be a little bit too detail oriented, but if you are using our repair coordination package, and let's just say you have a 4 unit, we ask that all 4 units are on that repair coordination package. And here's why. A lot of times if there's a leak or something, it's from the unit upstairs and we need access and authorization to call them, get someone out there. And so we found that from that perspective, coordinating for the whole property, especially like if we have pest control come and we need to notify the whole building, or we have something with the washer and dryer in the shared laundry space. We do need all of them on that package, but otherwise we don't have any restrictions.
Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. Exciting. This has been great. Thank you.
And if anyone does have questions, because I know we're at time here, my email is dana@hemlane.com. Also jump into the Facebook group after this is posted. So you could just post comments in there and I'll make sure to answer those as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana.
Great. Thanks so much for
That
having
was
me.
great. Yeah. All right.
You.
Well, Jonna, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I would just gonna, I forgot I had said I'd put that event in the next live event in the chat. I know some people have left, but we're getting it all out there anyway, but there's just the link right there for the in-person event we're doing here April 29th. A lot of buy and hold investors will be there for sure. And Dana, this might be the first of many events to come. And as we get larger and larger events, that would be awesome to have you up here in our community in person and sharing more. This was really valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love it. And the Boise market is, I think just in general, a fantastic place to invest. So I'd love to come up. Perfect.
Well, this is great. We will see you next time. We won't say goodbye. We'll see you over on the Facebook group. And I'm going to check out your site. We've been self-managing for many years and way different options as well. So I'm excited to learn more, and that I did learn more tonight. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.